Welcome everyone to this event. For decades now, we have been aware that human activities bring about significant impacts on ecosystems at all scales, from the local scale to the global scale. The twin crises of climate change and biodiversity loss are here. We see the signs, and the United Nations has recognized that nature-based solutions will be an essential part of policy responses to both these crises. Nature-based solutions encompass a broad range of actions. We harness the power of nature for sustainable development, to deliver benefits for climate resilience, for healthy populations, for sustainable economies, for green jobs, and also for biodiversity regeneration.
Thank you, Katarina. Welcome, everybody. This event is jointly organized by the United Nations Environment Programme and the Portuguese Presidency of the Council of European Union. It will focus on exploring the multiple benefits of nature-based solutions for cities, where the link to nature is many times lost, even if so essential. Thus, the discussions today will demonstrate the value of NBS, nature-based solutions for cities, from developing climate resilient pathways to harnessing a broad range of environmental and socio-economic benefits. The event will also highlight and includes three different sections. The first one I'll address in a minute, but the second and third sections highlight the local participatory approaches as basis for long-term success, and looking also at ways of scale impact with innovative approaches and calling for genuine action across different scales and sectors. There will be some time for discussion at the end of these two sections, and please use the Q&A box to place your questions. The chat is deactivated, so it's necessary to use this Q&A box. Before we start, and we will have a high-level panel with several ministers, including our minister from Portugal, that is already with us, and the Minister of Territorial Cohesion from Portugal. We also have the ministers of Slovenia and Germany. But before we start the high-level panel, that is the first section of our event, I have the honor to pass the word to Mrs. Inga Anderson, who will read a message from His Excellency, the Secretary General of United Nations, Antonio Guterres, that very kindly addressed this event. And I will give the word to Inga, please.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be with you today, and obviously always a pleasure to read a statement on behalf of my boss, the Secretary General of the United Nations. And what he emphasizes with us is that in their scale and complexity and beauty, cities show how ingenious humanity can be. But in our impact on the planet, we have also seen how short-sighted we can be. Cities are responsible for 80% or more of greenhouse gas emissions and 75% of the resources that we use. Cities are where air pollution kills millions of people every year and where it hangs most heavy in the air. 21 of the world's 33 megacities sit in low-lying coastal areas and are therefore exposed and greater risk to climate change and sea level rise. In short, cities drive but are also vulnerable to what we at the United Nations refer to as the triple planetary crisis: the crisis of climate change, the crisis of biodiversity, and the crisis of pollution. But the very density that concentrates problems in cities also allow for resource efficiency. And that is really the essence here. So tree coverage and city forests can dramatically reduce urban heat islands, particularly in the poorest neighborhoods. Yet equitable access to safe and green space remains widely lacking. Urban tree planting and restoration efforts are urgently needed in traditionally disinvested neighborhoods and communities that need cooling, shade, and green spaces. And cost-effective and nature-based solutions, such as protecting and restoring forests near or within cities, can also help to scale up climate action and deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals to which we have all agreed. So every dollar that we spend on ecosystem restoration and conservation can yield up to 7 times that amount in the larger economy. The European Green Deal, with 1.8 trillion euros of planned investments, including biodiversity and climate components, can foster a green recovery from the COVID-19 emergency. And the Just Transition mechanism can help ensure that no one is left behind. However, urban planning frequently overlooks ecosystems and nature found in and around cities. We need more national and subnational policies on sustainable urban development to ensure that nature can deliver solutions for erosion, for flooding, and for heat-related risks. And so without bold policies, we risk missing the opportunities that cities offer, especially given the growing population in urban areas. It's essential that we address the drivers of urban biodiversity loss and conserve and restore nature so that urban populations can thrive. In the United Nations Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, which was launched just this 5th of June, we need to promote a life in harmony with nature in our cities. Only then can we avert the worst impacts of climate change and recharge biodiversity for the benefit of people and the planet. So on behalf of the Secretary General, allow me to congratulate the Portuguese Presidency for placing these issues high on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inge. And we give the word immediately to our Portuguese Minister of Environment, His Excellency João Pedro Matos Fernandes, on this day when Portugal is finalizing the presidency. And so we have the pleasure to have the Minister with us now.
Well, thank you, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants. I want to start by expressing my gratitude to the UNEP for the excellent collaboration with Portugal in the development of these high-level events, and my trio partners, Svenja from Germany and Andrei from Slovenia, for promptly agreeing to contributing to this event. Nature-based solutions must be prioritized if we want to deliver on common climate and environmental goals, while simultaneously respond to significant societal challenges such as population growth, urbanization, or climate change. Developing and delivering nature-based solutions poses significant challenges, but also offers important opportunities, namely for cities. It is therefore essential that we share the results achieved with the implementation of these solutions so that they can increasingly be used. And at the very last day of this Portuguese presidency of the Council of the European Union, I believe we have a perfect theme to address as an epilogue of a very fruitful and successful first semester of 2021. NBS are win-win solutions as they bring benefits for the environment, the economy, and societies. By restoring nature, we can mitigate and adapt to climate change and simultaneously improve public health, reduce air pollution, save energy and water, and rearrange landscape. NBS are thus essential to achieve the goals the international community has collectively committed to on climate, biodiversity, and land, and thereby contribute to accomplish SDGs and Agenda 2030. The global health crisis highlighted the connection between nature and human health. COVID-19 made even more evident our dependence on biodiversity and the importance of ensuring a symbiotic relationship between all the inhabitants of our planet. Going back to a business-as-usual scenario is not an option. We have the responsibility to build back better. We have now the opportunity, responsibility to redefine our approach to nature at all levels, namely in cities, at a time when more than half of the world's population now live in urban areas. Policies must be directly linked to a territorial active management and recognize the value of ecosystem services. Science has shown over time that NBS tackle climate change, land degradation, mitigate natural disaster risks, and protect biodiversity, enhance connectivity, and enable natural biological processes. The new European strategy on adaptation to climate change highlights the value of nature-based solutions to adapt to the increasing effects of climate change. These win-win solutions bring multiple benefits. They empower people and communities, increase resilience, and provide jobs and business opportunities. Scaling up investment in NBS and stepping up implementation is the best insurance policy of all. There are concrete and successful examples of NBS all over the world. Some of these solutions are also being applied in Portugal, and later today we will listen to Lisbon's experience on this subject. Natural shading, increasing ecological value of cities, ensuring ecosystem services, and decreasing the effect of urban heat island are among the positive impacts achieved with these solutions. Later this year, crucial decisions will be taken in the 15th Conference of the Parties of the Convention of Biological Diversity, New Global Biodiversity Framework, and also at the COP26 of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, setting concrete plans to reach the Paris Agreement targets. For both COP, NBS are relevant and cities must not be forgotten as important grounds as far as NBS implementation is concerned. Dear colleagues, allow me to conclude with a word of thanks to all those who agreed to share their experience with us today. I hope the interesting experience we'll get to know today will inspire us all to deliver even increasingly more NBS to cities around the world, thereby improving the environment, our economies, and society overall. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Matos Fernandes. Thank you for your availability in being here with us today. I will give the floor to Mrs. Inge again because it's in the agenda now as Director of UNEP. Please.
Yes, it's a pleasure to speak as the Undersecretary General and Executive Director of UNEP. And we heard before, as I was referring to the Secretary General's speech, that I had the pleasure and the privilege of reading, the importance of and the significance of the 3 planetary crises. And we heard just now from His Excellency, the Minister from Portugal, the absolute commitment that we will see under the Portuguese presidency for the environmental agenda. And I really do congratulate Portugal on this leadership. But when we speak about cities then and the 3 planetary crises, we need to think about, so what is it that we need to do to bring back nature into the cities? And that's what I would like to focus on in my short intervention here. What is it we need to do to let that ingenuity and the industriousness that we showed when we built our cities, to rethink how we can use that to make cities really work for our people? And so I come to you with 3 things that we could do and that we should do, and frankly, that we must do to make our cities more livable. And the first is, frankly, let nature back in. And that means parks, that means green roofs, that means green streets, that means that we will cool our cities naturally by establishing green and shade instead of using power-hungry air conditioning. It means green and blue and hybrid infrastructure that lets nature do its job, that boosts nature, boosts environment through planning, through building codes, and through standards. And it means permeable surfaces that capture rainwater into the soils and recharge our aquifers rather than sending it through the storm drains directly into the ocean. It means urban and peri-urban agriculture to increase food security and to bring back biodiversity and the flowers and the pleasure for our cities. Now, we are seeing such approaches bear fruit across the globe in a number of cities, including in Lisbon, and we congratulate those cities for this, where we have seen in Lisbon, for example, these green corridors that form part of the city's biodiversity action plan. So first point, bring nature back in. Don't let it out. Second point, we need to rebalance cities' relationship with the peri-urban surrounding areas. Cities will continue to grow, we know this, but we cannot let sprawl develop that consumes and gobble up our lands, creating ugly and alienating areas. We need to think hard about the architecture and about the infrastructure. Where do we feel good? Where do we feel safe? Where is it attractive? It is always where we have higher densification, where there's greater mobility, where there's walkability, where it is green. So we need to find a smarter way and collaborative solutions to that expansion that we know will happen, to make it livable, make it attractive, use territorial approaches with the peri-urban that connect cities with their regions, but do not make ugly, alienating sprawl. And the third thing we need to do is reduce the pressure on nature. Cities are a major energy and resource consumer. We know this. So we need to make sure that this consumption is sustainable, is green, is reliable and sustainable. And that means looking everywhere from food waste. We need to look at that to energy efficient building, to circular economy models, through public procurement as a lever for change, but also through the guardrails and regulations that cities and governments establish. Cities can address their own demand and send strong signals along the value chains. We have the opportunity to put these elements in place. About 75% of the infrastructure that will exist in 2050 is yet to be built. 75% of the infrastructure that we will have in 2050 is not yet built. So if we are going to go about building that, surely we're not going to build it the old way. We're going to have to build it the new way. And the COVID-19 stimulus packages offers us that chance to make that gear shift. And the UN decade on ecosystem restoration can really be that rallying point for restoring nature in cities. So these are the 3 points we need to do to make this happen. We need to boost multi-level governance. Many cities are doing the right thing, but they need help from national governments. At the moment, the urban content is underrepresented in the national determined contributions. We need to see that boosted. And equally, we need to value nature in the city and how it accounts and quantify for the benefits that it delivers. Then we do that, we can unlock the financing for restoration and natural assets, as well as green and hybrid infrastructure. Building business models is also important, which is why UNEP is proud to work on guidance to identify revenue generating models for nature-based solutions. So friends and partners, excellencies, urbanization is a fact of life and it's pleasurable if done well. Cities can help us deliver energy, health services, jobs, good livability, and so much more. But cities have to work with the natural world and not against it. If cities can innovate and reinvent themselves now by investing in nature-based solutions, we can slow climate change. We can avoid biodiversity loss. We can drive down pollution. We can provide clean air and clean water. We can stay cool in our rising temperatures. We can turn the concrete jungle into urban forests and provide healthy, equitable, and sustainable lives and opportunities for everyone who lives in our cities. Thank you very, very much for this opportunity. And I'm very grateful that we could have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Inger Anderson, for your presence and the inspiring words, and for this very nice starting after we started this high-level panel that we will continue with another Portuguese minister, this time giving the floor to Her Excellency Ana Brunhosa, that is already sitting here with us. Welcome, and thank you again for being available. Please give us your message on the benefits of nature-based solutions and your view on that.
Thank you, Susanna Neto, and good afternoon to everyone. And my first role is to greet today's panelists and thank the organizers for your invitation. I want to start by stressing the importance of this event. It is, in our opinion, it is no longer time to declare how relevant individual and collective action is for the fight against the climate change, or how important it is for public policies and European and national agendas to include these dimensions. Today and in the near future, the time is for action, to make change happen effectively and efficiently. In this spirit, I would like to leave you some notes for reflection as Minister for Territorial Cohesion, with the responsibility of implementing the regional programs supported by European funds. My first note is to acknowledge that we are all very sensible and committed to the topic, but we still know very little about the results of our previous actions. We have been doing it the easy way, replicating good practices, imposing specific interventions and mobilizing behavior changes, with measures like investing in more sustainable mobility models, rewarding individual behavior, increasing energy efficiency in public buildings and mobilizing private individuals for these attitudes. We have been transposing directives, legislating preventively and addressing national and European agendas. And these measures were many times the result of long and complicated processes, but they are still not enough, in our opinion. Now, let me repeat, it is time for action to do what has not yet been done. For those future actions, we still need more knowledge, better examples, closer monitoring, and in-depth evaluation of many of the measures we have launched. Natural-based solutions seem like a logical way to make it happen. We need to follow these solutions more closely in the future and to learn more from the local strategies and the beneficiaries of these public policies to make measures that are more sustainable and more adapted to our current needs. Europe has to work together to come up with the new ideas and solutions, to test the results, open up new paths for research, and to create solutions that are more appropriate to the reality of our cities. We know what doesn't work, and unfortunately, we don't have a magic wand to erase the mistakes of the past and start over again. So we have to work on top of what we have done, with greater support from academia and research centers, so we can come up with new, more innovative interventions. As your event suggests, bringing more nature into our cities can be an objective to mobilize around. This approach will imply building new urban space with the capacity to respond at the same time to the demographic challenge and the need for more accessible, cleaner and greener cities. But it also means greater capacity to create in low-density territories conditions to attract and settle residents, workers, families, and new enterprises. In order to do it in low-density territories, we have to create these conditions to promote attractive lifestyles, to find new approaches to work and remote work. The first territories to offer these innovations will be the most successful in the fight against the population. This pandemic showed us that if we adapt, we can respond effectively to these new challenges. Natural-based solutions will be decisive when addressing heat waves in the urban context, the consequences of extreme events, or the need for a more circular economy with circular resources. Now we need to keep up building on these solutions with more knowledge and counting more on science and innovation, for them to address the challenges of post-pandemic world, and for them to adapt to the needs and opportunities of every territory and its population. We are all up to this challenge, and I hope that with an open mind, we can work together to improve our individual and collective response in the future. Thank you so much for your invitation and for your attention. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Madam Ana Brunhosa, for your inspiring words and for calling to action the bridge with academia and better knowledge and more examples. That is also a path that we want to pursue. I will now give the floor, continuing with our schedule, to Her Excellency, the Minister of Minister of Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety of Germany. And I think that we will have a presentation in video.
Colleagues, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the German Bundestag has just passed a new Climate Change Act. The Act sets ambitious, concrete targets, including for the protection and expansion of natural carbon sinks. With this Act, we are creating the political framework in Germany for driving forward nature-based solutions. In cities in particular, these new approaches help adapt to impacts of climate change, such as heat waves and heavy rainfalls. Unsealed areas, fresh air corridors that are rich in species, green spaces, green roofs and facades can absorb rainfall and reduce heat. This makes cities more resilient and, if designed wisely, creates valuable habitats for native animals and plants. At the same time, important recreational areas are created in neighborhoods, improving the quality of life. And this is why we at the Federal Environment Ministry are promoting nature-based solutions in cities. Internationally, through our International Climate Initiative, for example, we are helping 20 cities in Latin America and the Caribbean set up local waterfronts. The goal is to establish a resilient water supply and improve supply security. In Germany, the Federal Environment Ministry is supporting municipalities in improving species and biotope diversity and in developing green infrastructure. To this end, the German government adopted a master plan for urban nature. Nature-based solutions also play an important role in support programs for adaptation to climate change. This includes creating water areas for cooling, greening buildings and streets and desealing areas. This enhances use of the soil's natural cooling function, and water can be absorbed and stored more easily. Nature-based solutions need to become widespread as quickly as possible in Germany, the European Union, and worldwide. Therefore, it is encouraging to see that this issue is becoming increasingly important within the EU and at international level, in the G20 and G7 negotiations, and at the Conference of the Parties to the Rio Convention and the United Nations Environment Assembly. Together with all of you, I will work to ensure the value of our natural ecosystems is better understood, and I look forward to today's event playing a part. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister Schlusser. We appreciate very much your words, pragmatic, and we will look at the Germany example very carefully and with great interest. Thank you so much for your presentation. I will now give the floor to another minister, Andrej Šlak, Slovenian Minister of Environment and Spatial Planning, that is also addressing this event with a video. Thank you very much.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank United Nations Environment Programme and the Portuguese Presidency for the invitation to this important event. I believe we are well aware how interlinked our lives are with nature. The multiple benefits of nature in the cities are evident. Green areas and other natural elements provide better environment in urban areas. They improve air quality, support better water management, and provide space for recreation. They shape the city's identity. We have already recognized nature as an important part of human settlements. Further to that, I'm especially pleased that we are recognizing cities and towns as important areas of nature preservation. Promoting green infrastructure solutions, green and sound urban planning can help to protect and enhance biodiversity, as well as enable more healthy environment of our citizens, which is encouraging. Urban planning is crucial for providing and supporting nature-based solutions. In addition, green urban areas are of high importance for climate resilience, biodiversity, and quality of life. In urban development, steps toward nature-based solutions have already been taken. In the frame of the urban agenda, a partnership on nature-based solutions was established. Cities, EU member states, and other stakeholders have been working together to promote and increase the use of nature-based solutions in cities. For example, through better regulation on European, national, and local levels, through better funding opportunities, through awareness raising, and by proposing common objectives and indicators for nature-based solutions, urban green infrastructure, and biodiversity. The importance of green areas in cities is also acknowledged in the new Leipzig Charter, the strategic framework for sustainable urban development in EU. Cities are especially called upon to protect and regenerate ecosystems and to use nature-based solutions, especially for accommodating extreme weather conditions. Slovenian cities are small and medium-sized, so cities can often find nature at their doors. So citizens can often find nature at their doorstep. However, we realize the nature around the cities is not enough for resilience to climate change and quality living environment, and that we have to promote further preservation and development of biodiversity in cities. Nature-based solutions make our cities and towns greener and more pleasant for living and working. I believe we have a lot of knowledge and expertise. So good examples of nature-based solutions can be seen in European cities. In Slovenia, we are also strengthening and promoting the importance of nature and its multiple benefits in urban as well as other areas in the national spatial planning recommendations and guidelines. With this in mind, our aim is to promote multiple benefits of nature-based solutions for cities and above all, enable green and healthy environment to our citizens and the next generation. I wish you a successful conference and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, the Minister of Slovenia, and we hope that you proceed in the next presidency with this item very top on the agenda. So thank you very much for your participation here, very inspiring. We will now start the second part of our event. I will pass to Katarina, very
Thank you, Susanna.
Start now running the show. Thank you, Katarina.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you so much. So the first part of the session, I think, has shown very clearly to all of us that there is a high-level agreement on the importance of nature within cities and cities within nature. We are not separate from nature. We must live within it. It's thus an exciting time to be a practitioner and, of course, also to be a researcher looking at these topics, as we can glimpse the possibilities for the future. But it's really important to assess the solutions and to build knowledge, learning from those that are forging ahead. So we will now begin the second part of this session, which is entitled Opportunities and Challenges to Advance Nature-Based Solutions. I do remind everyone that you can use the question and answer box if you have questions that we will try to answer at the end of the presentations. So we begin the second part with a talk by Philippe Tolkens, who is the acting head of unit at DG Research and Innovation. And he will tell us about the advantages of a nature-based recovery and the role of research and innovation in this process.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me here. And I would like here to thank the organizers of this event, but also the Portuguese Presidency, and to express my recognition for the place that the Portuguese Presidency brought to NBS. So this is appreciated. We worked on the NBS on several different policy files in the EU, and that has been very helpful. I don't want to read a statement. I think that for online conferences, I don't know how people can keep their attention in listening to these statements. So I'll try to go through just a few key messages delivered somewhat informally. It's quite clear that the momentum for NBS has grown very much. Also, since many years now, DG Research and Innovation of the European Commission has invested in those, and we see now the fruits of this investment done since several years. But we see that now this is going beyond the research community, and this is welcome, of course. It goes to business, local governments, and that's great. And nature-based solutions will be really key in the coming years for implementing the European Green Deal. Most of you probably know that this is the new growth model of the EU. This is the intention. Now we have to do the realization, and NBS are really amongst the best solutions, but their value is not always sufficiently recognized. So through the European Green Deal, we will promote the deployment of NBS, but also there are other policy initiatives related to the Green Deal that can also bring momentum to further support the nature-based solutions, which are the EU Climate Pact. You know that the EU increased its climate ambition for 2030 and endorsed the objective to become climate neutral by 2050. This is a major change to which, of course, nature-based solution can contribute. Another element also very relevant to NBS is the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030 with objectives as well. And since February of this year, the EU has a new strategy on adaptation to climate change. This is also fundamental, and nature-based solutions are part of the solutions for all these policy streams, and the major transformation, it's almost a revolution, and that has to happen in the EU if we want to meet the objectives. This is true for cities, of course, as this is the topic of today. And there's an additional way to further increase the investment into nature-based solution is through the recovery plans. I guess that all the member states who had to prepare their recovery plans have had the opportunity to look at the potential of nature-based solutions and consider nature-based solutions as part of their recovery process. And I hope that many will invest in those, because it is the member states, it is the local authorities that have to take up these solutions, implement them, and transform their local, their national environment through the use of these. So, but of course, this is a fantastic development, but we are not stopping the research. The research should continue, because there are still some knowledge gaps that we wish to address and need to address through our research and innovation program. So those are opportunities for those who are the forefront of knowledge on NBS, and we will further increase our investments in it through the program Horizon Europe, which has published recently some calls for research and innovation proposals. I encourage you to have a look at this. And the calls actually focus on the economic and financial performance of NBS investments. These socioeconomic aspects are fundamental to accelerate the deployment of NBS. and because without the sound economic assessment on their viability and an acceleration of the process towards investment in those, we will not succeed in implementing them as fast as we should. There will be other opportunities as well to promote and deploy NBS from a research and innovation perspective as well. It's through the European Biodiversity Partnership and through the Horizon Europe's missions. So the mission is kind of a new animal. It's not a new instrument. It's just another way of working. It's rooted in research and innovation, but it goes beyond. And there are 5 missions, 4 touch on environmental aspects, and 1 is about adaptation to climate change. So the missions are expected to be launched soon. It will be an investment that goes, as I said, it's rooted in research innovation, but it goes beyond, really to reach out to the local actors to test solutions with their involvement, their participation, the participation of citizens, in order to demonstrate the viability of these solutions and accelerate the processes of adaptation to climate change in the regions that decide to participate to the initiative. So in conclusion, I would say that we live in a period of unprecedented challenges, but we also have good hope because some solutions are there, and those are through the kind of rediscovery of things that nature has been offering to us since millennia, but somehow were forgotten. And thanks to good science, this has been rediscovered, and I look forward to see how this opportunity will be seized. As a last message, I wish to say that I'm now participating to a number of events on NBS. It's great. There is a huge momentum in the EU and also at the international level. But I must say that the level of understanding on what NBS are and what they can provide is still uneven across the world. We recently had a meeting of IPBES, the platform on biodiversity and ecosystem services, and we saw that the positions of the different nations in the world were not exactly the same when we were talking about the concept of NBS. And I would call for also some connection between these science policy interface at the global level, where the UN, of course, plays a role, and the reality on the ground, because we will not progress if we don't have a good common understanding and collective support to NBS to deploy them globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippe. I would encourage everyone in the audience who hasn't seen it yet to look for the handbook on assessing nature-based solutions that the EC has just prepared and published last month. Now, the next speaker is Anna Dan. Anna is the head of division for sustainable finance and adaptation from the Portuguese Environment Agency, and she will discuss the regulatory framework along with issues regarding policy mainstreaming, governance, and financing of nature-based solutions. Thank you, Anna.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for your presentation. I'm very pleased to be here and to share with you opportunities that have been created throughout EU to boost nature-based solutions. I work at climate change for a long time, so naturally my presentation will have a great focus on this. In particular, I will put climate change adaptation at the center of my presentation. In fact, climate change adaptation is gaining more relevance since events related to climate change are becoming more frequent, more intense, and persistent. Moreover, slow onset events after affect larger and larger areas. Both of them, unfortunately, are increasing the risk of significant human, material, and natural losses. And so, consequently, it is urgent, the need that the countries, regions, and in particular, in this case, cities, can adapt to these effects and to strengthen their resilience and reduce their vulnerability to climate change. In this process, the overall cost effectiveness of adaptation action, especially by using nature-based solutions with safeguards and the tangible added effects, benefits for nature, society, and the economy that successfully climate adaptation can bring have to be acknowledged. In this context, as Philippe already mentioned, we have to start to stress this new EU adaptation strategy, which was launched, and I will pass that part. What I would like to stress in this case was that we have had very fruitful debates among the technicians of EU, but also amongst the ministers, which indicates us that this is a very high topic and that more and more we need to pay attention to it. This new strategy with the European climate law, which was signed today, will help us to have a climate resilient EU and climate neutral society in the next decades, hopefully by 2050. Therefore, the conclusions that the Council endorsed on the 10th of June, they focus on the need to have better data, a better use of that data, and to promote nature-based solutions. The conclusions had a high focus in NBS. Indeed, integrating financial and economic considerations and stepping up at international level, it was recognized the importance of this role, the importance of NBS in building climate resilience, helping to maintain or enhance biodiversity as well as to protect restoring ecosystems. And so what we also wanted to emphasize with these conclusions and what was achieved, it was the incredible role that the regional might have, the cities, because nobody else knows their own cities as the municipalities. Indeed, we see a link between the effectiveness of NBS and the local context. So involving local stakeholders from the outset in the planning and in design of those NBS is crucial for ensuring social acceptance and also to fully deliver the multiple benefits of NBS. Alone, we are strong. Together, indeed, we are stronger. The Council conclusions had also recognized the importance of integrating adaptation measures in sustainable forest management as an example of nature-based solutions, highlighting the multifunctional role of forests, in particular in stabilizing and cooling local climates, regulating hydrological cycles, and contributing positively to the carbon cycle. In fact, as we can see in this picture from report of European Environment Agency, the same measure can be used to multiple policies. And this is the great benefit. One NBS can benefit several policies. In fact, for example, you can see that the blue-green infrastructure can be used to increase biodiversity, and at the same time, it can also be used in the climate change adaptation policy to reduce the risk of flooding. Such solutions reduce social and environmental vulnerabilities and can bring multiple co-benefits, such as mitigating climate change, improving human health and well-being, and providing jobs and business opportunities. However, the involvement of several areas require a robust framework with clear roles, but all linked and all working together. As you can see here, we have biodiversity, forests, land use and forestry, water, agriculture, climate change, and disaster risk reduction, all different policies, but that can all be linked and should all be linked. With this motto, alone we are strong, together we are stronger, we have implemented in Portugal for a while a robust structure under our National Adaptation Strategy, which I have to stress as the benefit to involve several sectors and different thematic areas, and in particular with a great political commitment. In the slide, you can see the Commission for Climate Action, which is a ministerial structure that leads all these climate change policy. Then the structure is coordinated by the Portuguese Environment Agency, but we only coordinate because the responsible to apply and to draft the policies and measures which have to be put in place in Portugal are indeed the different groups of activity and the different areas, because we believe that they are the ones that have the knowledge to know how to handle climate change effects in their own areas. However, it is important, and it was already mentioned, that the science is fundamental, and we have the great opportunity to count with a scientific panel with 20 very important citizens from the universities and institutions of Portugal to give us also that scientific view that we need to draft the most suitable policies in climate change adaptation. And without money, nothing is possible, unfortunately. So we have created an environmental fund. The environmental fund is our powerful instrument to take forward the climate transition, to reinforce resilience, cohesion, and competitiveness of our economy, society, and territory. And this fund has its scope in climate change and environment, and touched upon water, waste, transports, industry, energy, buildings, nature conservation, and biodiversity. But today, I would like to stress the calls that we already dedicated to nature-based solutions. In the past, already in 2019, we had a call that was had the aim to reduction and minimize the risks associated with floods, reduce the risk and increase the resilience of infrastructures. In the same call, we also aim to increase the resilience of ecosystems, species, and habitats to the effects of climate change by maintaining or restoring riparian galleries and fostering the creation of refuges and ecological corridors for vulnerable species. And last week, within the Portuguese Recovery and Resilience Plan, we have opened a call with 30 million euros dedicated to promote sustainable buildings. This is an initiative in the scope of the EU Initiative of Renovation Wave, and it has a specific a specific paragraph dedicated to interventions for the incorporation of bioclimatic architecture solutions involving the installation or adaptation of fixed elements of buildings, such as shading, greenhouse gas, and green roofs or facades, which we stress we will have to give relevance, in particular if the person that applies to this call will choose natural-based solutions. So we think that this is perfect. This is a perfect call for citizens within the cities to apply to promote the sustainability of the buildings where they live, and it is open to citizens, not only to companies. I hope that these examples inspired you. And finally, and not less important, just one sentence to inform you that we also have started our national roadmap for adaptation for the next century. It is in progress. Has just begun, and it will study the climate scenarios of Portugal for the next years till 2100, and to know what vulnerabilities our country has in the different regions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anna. That was very interesting. This session is very intense, I realize, but we need to continue moving forward. Bringing us now more information on the case of Lisbon, Rosário Oliveira. She is a researcher, and she'll be presenting the multi-dimensions of a just city and what is the role of communities on the co-definition of nature-based solutions. Thank you, Rosário.
Thank you, Catarina. Good afternoon to all. My compliments to all the excellencies, dear panelists and attendants. I'm very grateful for the opportunity of sharing the principles and the action that are taking place in Lisbon, the last European green capital that intends to keep on the track of offering nature-based solutions in an equitable way towards a more just city. Just before I was born, there was a feeling in the air that future would contain what people would have put into it. However, in most of the cities, we need to work harder to evolve more than we had on the last 15 years. Maybe we have already learned enough to be more ambitious by looking current times as an opportunity to reseek the environment where 2/3 of the world's population will be concentrated in 30 years' time. When it will happen, imagine a city where buying your favorite products leads to more nature, not less, and where your job can withstand environmental and economic shocks, where the air you breathe is pure and fresh, reused water is widely accepted, soil is producing safe food, waste is recycled, and where bird song no longer has to compete with the noise of traffic. Reaching this scenario is most likely one of the biggest challenges for the current and coming generations to use efficient solutions to shift, for instance, from densification to de-densification, or from a garden city into a city in a garden. These are nature-based solutions, and they are crucial towards a just city where social conditions, environmental quality, and health are positively correlated to guarantee an equitable access and distribution of basic resources and services. A just environmental city is something complex, since it implies a distributive justice, an equitable access to natural resources, and a procedural justice. What to do then? The nugget model is just one of the references we may take. The outermost wall of the donuts represents issues of climate degradation. Things like biodiversity loss, ozone depletion, ocean acidification, chemical pollution, and more. The innermost wall represents social issues, things like gender equality, jobs, social equity, income, affordable housing, and education. In between lie the policies that allow a city to be all that it should: eco-friendly, socially just, safe, and presumably happy. The idea is that environmental and social goals are linked, and the authorities should make regulations and enforce them accordingly. We are lucky because we already count with a considerable set of NBS to convert conceptual models into practice. But more than NBS, we also need to go into a nature-based economic scenario when we apply them into farms, forests, and urban areas, creating additional jobs and increasing socioeconomic benefits of ecosystem services. We need to connect all of these multi-systems at multi-levels in which survivability should be headed through urban buzzwords like connectivity and sustainability. Connexus is a Nature 2020 project that brings together multiple actors to co-define and to deliver nature-based solutions in 7 cities over Europe and Latin America. And Lisgreen Life Lab acts in Lisbon in a multi-scale approach for producing collaborative knowledge to be applied on NBS implementation in 2 pilots according to 3 main goals. To co-produce ecological services, to raise awareness about the importance of urban green transformation, to influence decision makers on introducing a nature-based thinking on policy design. In Lisbon, ecosystem restoration system is now ensuring a strong focus on social inclusion, demonstrating placekeeping principles and enhancing ecological connectivity, taking environmental and social justice as a part of the same whole. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm fully disposal on the question and answers sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rosario, for reminding us yet again that without the communities together, we will not be able to achieve our goals. Now, before we head to the final part of the session, I would just like to remind everyone that the videos and the presentations will be made available in the UNEP website, which has been put in the Q&A. So for those who are not able to watch the videos or some of the presentations because of bandwidth constraints, don't worry, you will have access to all the material online. Moving then to the final part, which will be more illustrative of what solutions are actually being put in place. We begin with Duarte de Araújo. Duarte is bringing us some more information and some pictures. I know because I've seen his presentation, some pictures of Lisbon's green infrastructure transition using an ecological landscape approach. Thank you, Duarte. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the kind invitation from Lisbon to be present here. It's always a pleasure to showcase our city evolution. I will say that I can make briefly a resume of more than 10 years of the same policy in terms of nature-based solution. It were with Deputy Mayor Sá Fernandes in the environmental directorate, and I think it's the most important thing we have been doing in Lisbon is to look to the ecosystem service and to the green infrastructure as the same faces of the same coin. So we started here with a green spaces department and a green spaces approach, and we are 15 years later with the ecosystem service approach with a green infrastructure that provides the urban service to the city. And in fact, even the directorate's name has changed, because now it's green infrastructure, it's climate, and in the beginning was green space and environment. It makes all the difference. It's not a question of names. We created including departments devoted to biodiversity and to climate adaptation and climate change mitigation. This is a very special day because by this time the council meeting is discussing the climate action plan, which is something for the next decade. And ecosystem service and the biodiversity local action plan are in the center of a policy of climate adaptation. And now we are trying to transmit to the society that green infrastructure is not can be seen as an ecosystem provider, and you can make the balance between the money it costs and the service it provides. And we are talking about responding to several large range of services that are very important, and they were not presented a few years before. Today, green infrastructure is the place for local food production. The first allotment garden is from 2011. It's making only 1 decade of the first urban allotment park in Lisbon. The master plan was changed in 2012 to tackle the climate adaptation, and it included a green corridor infrastructure, which was not possible in the previous master plan. But we are talking about reducing costs for the economy with raising health benefits to increase the capacity of responding to urban heat island effect, which is something that crosses with social justice. It's a question of poverty, social poverty, and energy poverty, to respond with a city that can raise the capacity of resilience of a neighborhood when you are in front of events like we are seeing now in North Canada, which is absolutely impressive. And in Lisbon, we have been crossing some records in temperature in the previous years. And this is something that will affect the most poor, the most vulnerable part of the society that is not able to cool the houses. And we should make everything it's possible from the public administration to create the most resilient city possible. One of the things that is absolutely out of discussion is that green infrastructure is maybe one of the most cost-effective solutions to tackle climate change. And in Lisbon, we are tackling 3 things mainly. We are tackling the urban heat island effect. We are tackling the flash floods, which were increasing due to the urbanization. And we are tackling the lack of water. And we decided to implement this multitask green infrastructure, which was based on nature-based solutions as the most important characteristic. It created a very interesting thing that we could raise with the sum, more or less the same budget allocated to green infrastructure. We could improve more than 3 times the rate of implementation of the green infrastructure, because it depends on several things. For nature-based solutions, climate adaptative solutions in green infrastructure, it's the same to bring landscape, to push the landscape forward, and less boutique green spaces that are absolutely something that the cities should overcome and not to proceed with this kind of approach. It represents the way of creating very sustainable economical places in terms of implementation and in terms of maintenance. Something that creates a gateway to raise the implementation of green infrastructure, because we don't have to care about the raise of implementation from maintenance costs that normally they come together with the green infrastructure increase. So we have run different programs that are running in parallel and that can respond to this kind of urban service. In the picture below, you can see something that is very important in Lisbon and in southern European cities. We are now running a live project which tries to performance the urban green infrastructure as a climate adaptative tool. And this message that we are transmitting is that irrigated lawns can be replaced for very interesting biodiversity solutions that can be rain-fed. And this sign located in a very central park tells you that This is yellow in summer, green in autumn and winter, and all colors in spring. It seems very easy to tell this message, but it is soft. It's very difficult. The same as with the allotment gardens that you can see all over the city now. And in the beginning, people were very, they didn't recognize this as a landscape that you could put in the city. The same to work with sustainable drainage in the city is a way of changing the framework of how to design parks. We want the water in the parks. We don't want to take the water very fast to the downtown, and it depends. Here it is a multitask design solution that we manage the rainwater. I'm concluding with two programs. One, massive planting, tree planting that we are using and running from different European funding projects. This picture is during the European Green Capital, and we are planting massive areas of trees to reduce temperature and raising the quality of the urban trees because it can save lives. And at other scales, we are using ecological solutions to make ecological depuration in lakes using plants, which is a very, very interesting biome to birds and lots of species, and the water gets clean with beauty and reducing the costs. So in conclusion, we are using nature-based solutions for all the kind of justifications, climate, biodiversity. But one thing it's possible to say, that they can reduce costs in implementation, they can be cost effective, and we can prove it during these last 10 years with the range of implementation of green and the sustainable types of green we have been achieving. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you, Bart. Very useful, very interesting. We now move to our last presentation, which is an example from a very different geography, very different climate. So tropical climate. We have Angela Cruz Guirão, who is the director of the Department of Green and Sustainable Development in Campinas City Hall in Brazil. So Angela, the floor is yours.
Hello from Brazil. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, us for this event and the organization. I will initially present Campinas. Campinas is a city in the state of São Paulo, Brazil, with more than 1.2 million citizens, figuring as the center of the metropolitan region of Campinas, which has 19 other cities. In 2016, the Department of Green completed the preparation of environmental plans to deal with green areas, water, resources, sanitation, and environmental education. These plans identified the city's main environmental problems, such as absence of green areas with a social function, public parks, lack of sanitation in rural areas, and the fragmentation of forest. This planning has empowered us with knowledge about our territory and natural resources, make it possible to identify zones and set focused policies. Those policies have been integrated to other departments' agendas, such as urbanistics and master plan. Besides, goals and programs having been achieved in order to address these spotted problems, mainly through solutions based on nature, even though we were not aware of this approach back in that time. Regarding climate-related policies, Campinas coordinated the preparation of the metropolitan inventory of greenhouse gases and atmospheric pollutions, and created a specialized municipal policy for it. So now I invite you to go with me through some examples of our work and programs. Enabling the implementation of ecological corridors by planting more than 4,000 native trees for forest restoration. By the end of July, 3 passages of arboreal fauna will also be installed. About the linear parks program, you choose the linear parks because these structures allow the promotion of leisure and sport activities, bikeways, environment education, improve the quality of life. Also, the recovery of physical and biotic aspects along with the restoration of riparian forest and flood management and integrating ecosystems. Therefore, linear parks are excellent NBS in consolidator in urban areas. Furthermore, the strategy for implementing linear parks is also being outlined by the Reconnect IMC program, aimed to establish a connectivity area in the metropolitan region of Campinas. This area adopts multiple perspectives and encourages the more sustainable use and occupation of the territory using guidelines aligned with ecosystem service and NBS. As rural areas are not served by the public sewage system, more than 200 septic tanks were donated to rural landowners. About transport, our public fleets now transitioning to electric mobility, and more than 17 kilometers of cycle paths have already been implemented. That being said, I need to emphasize all the technical, human, and financial support received from our partners, which are essential to boost the actions of Campinas and the metropolitan region, and to broaden the city's opportunities, among which I can highlight some organization and its projects. You are together AA Brazil with the City Forest Problem, a global network that catalyzes political, social, and economic support among municipal governments. ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, with the Interactive Program, a project designed to improve the use and management of nature within fast-growing cities and the regions around them. Moreover, Campinas has signed the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy. It's a global alliance of voluntarily committed cities and local governments, and also use the CDP platform to measure, manage, and disclose the environmental data. Finally, this year, Campinas has become signatory to National Coalition, the Climate Action Alliances Brazil. At last, I hope that I could reinforce the importance of integrated planning, collaboration with partners and stakeholders for building local capacity to support sustainable programs. Cities need to be prepared to receive funding, and mainly political will and public commitment for economical, social, and environmental development of our territories and communities. So thank you so much for your attention, and of course, I am available for further talks and questions.
Thank you so much, Angela. So we finished our presentations. We have a few minutes now for the Q&A session. Fortunately, many of the questions that were placed along the session have already been answered by the panelists. However, I will now give the word to Susanna to ask a couple of other questions that still have not been answered.
Thank you, Katarina, for the hard moderation. Some of the times are really so tight, and we apologize our speakers because we had to be screwing you so much. But many of these ideas will surely be discussed later. Everybody left the contacts, and can be other questions asked later. It will also be available, the recording of this session. There were several points that were made along the discussion. Of course, people very upset and worried about the way climate is changing and situations in the ocean or in the Antarctic, etc. Katarina also referred this interesting handbook and left the link for everybody that wants to see. The first question that we have is a bit broad. In a time when public funds are limited in many places, how does one make or balance the case for investment in urban nature-based solutions, particularly when this is not always high in the agendas? So not only national nature agencies have a traditional conservation activity, or there's a need to invest in other non-urban nature-based solutions, like peatland conservation, forestry, agriculture, etc., to achieve net zero? This is a very broad question, so maybe I will also refer that meantime, maybe some of you, I will invite maybe Rosario and the municipality of Lisbon maybe to give a short word on this. So maybe Rosario, would you like to say something about this broad question?
Yes, it's a hard question. Okay, I think it's mostly from now on that we will start to have some more specific programs and measures and schemes to be used for nature-based solutions implementations. So I think in the middle of these possibilities, there will be some schemes that are specifically related with urban context and some others with non-urban contexts. What maybe is missing is on how to link all them together. And this is one of the aspects that I try to point out on my presentation, because I think we should avoid to have too much sectorial policies and to find out more and more integrated perspectives from which we can look at the territory as a whole and not as a summing of different parts. So of course that I can see that different programs can be allocated to different strategies, but in the end of the day, they need to match all together. And that's why it's so important to have a good interrelationship between what are the more generic and wide European strategies, what are the national policies, and within each country to have a very specific and adequate measures to respond to what are the main specificities, and that's it. That's why also it's extremely relevant to act in a multi-level perspective with, of course, a multi-stakeholders framework.
I think the same question for Duarte would be very well illustrated by the picture that we have in front of us right now. So everyone's looking at the Parque Duarte VII. This is a green area of Lisbon, which is a traditional green area, very manicured, so to speak, so very geometric and very little natural, in fact, but it is still a green space. And so how do we make people accept that green spaces don't have to be this manicured sort of park, traditional park within cities, but that it can be a more really letting nature take its free course with overgrown shrubs and trees and insects and animals. Duarte, how is the Lisbon municipality moving from one to the other?
I think it's a good example because there are two particular information that I think they explain the change of Lisbon. One is that the Parque Duarte VII is now on renovation to create a sustainable drainage system. All the water will be retained in the park now with the special structure, nature-based solution, including a central basin here located in the middle of this area that you see in the picture. So 100% sustainable drainage in this park. The second thing is that this park is now connected to the forest park of Monsanto through a corridor, a green corridor of 2 kilometers. That which I think good news here in Lisbon in terms of the change that people can see. It was the first green corridor, and it opened the opportunity for the other 9 green corridors we are now doing. But I would like to focus on this question by the landscape planning. I think one of the most important things in sustainability and in terms of nature-based solutions is to change wherever it's necessary in the landscape planning to the ecological structure at regional scale, at municipal scale, stop to be looked as a problem for a constraint, as it's called in the landscape planning today, the master plan. You cannot build, it's a problem, it's a mindsetting, the problem that you cannot do several things, and we should change this landscape approach to the regimes like we have in Germany, for instance, that you have to prove before you build that you have enough space to build in existing gray areas and before opening a new front in the landscape. While we are looking to the ecological structure as a problem, as a constraint that we have to fight to build, and while this mindsetting don't change, we will always making very slow progress. And I think in Portugal, we have to make a big step forward. We have to implement the regional planning. For instance, in Lisbon and Porto metropolitan areas, this must be a top-down process and not 18 municipalities making landscape plannings that are not connected each other and not have a very regional approach, which is basic in terms of what is the nature-based solution approach, the landscape, ecosystem, everything.
Yeah, that is a
Thank you.
really important point, Eduardo. Thank you for ending with that. Susana.
Thank you, Duarte and Rosario. Thank you, Angela and Anna as well, and Philippe. So we need really to finalize and make a short wrap up, not without saying that we will keep, of course, exchanging with all of you as much as possible. This will be recorded. We will also see if there are some links that we can provide to the team and be put in the webpage later. And everybody will keep working. And this is just one of the many doors that we open on this topic. In terms of wrap up, Katerina, I think that we had such inspiring words from Inger at the start. I would only add one that has to do with this mindset changing. I think you were putting the good point on this very nice picture of the Parque Eduardo VII as so cosmetic. And we need to change our minds that nature is nature. We need something wild back in the city. And this was the first note from Inger, was let nature back in. Let nature take some space and invite us to change our minds regarding the way we live in the cities, and having a bit more, the second note of her, having a better balance with the cities within their regions and within all the areas that we impact and that we absorb in water, in territorial aspects of resources, and being more balanced with that in that equilibrium of the urban areas and the regional surroundings and the context. And also, of course, the third is reduce the pressure on nature. If we do that, of course, we are reducing the pressure on nature and changing the mindset and thinking more like the nature does, if nature thinks. We are achieving a bit more that balance. So this event was, of course, a way of calling attention to this. There's lots of, like Philippe was saying, lots of events dedicated to nature-based solutions, lots of experiences. And it was very positive to have this in the last day of the presidency of Portugal, and giving way, because there was a great event in the German presidency, and giving way to the Slovenian that is next. So making this bridge and linking and not letting it disappear. So Katerina, I think that we just opened some doors, and surely we'll have more opportunities, don't you think?
I would say we planted some seeds, Susanna.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you very much,
everyone. Yes, well, as I was writing on the Q&A, it's so many more questions are appearing now in the box, but unfortunately we do not have time to answer. But the idea was to raise awareness, to provide people with examples, to be an inspiration. I think the panelists in this event did that exceptionally well. So I would thank everyone again for participating and express my desire that in the next decade and surely to 2050, we'll see our cities and our regional areas change the way we know we need them to.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. We hope to meet you all very soon.